So to start off my discussion, really, and Secretary kind of hinted on this, is that retirement is not a financial affair. It is very heavily leaning towards, because to survive as an adult, as an independent adult, you need healthy finances. But there are two things which we naturally ignore, or we don't talk enough about, which is the mind, the state of your mind, and the state of your body after you leave your day job. So we are going to focus a lot on finances. I'm not an expert on mind and body, but I will make a brief remark on that. You need to be healthy way before you retire. You need to be healthy. You need to be in good shape. You need to look after yourself, eat well, get checked. As we go on in this discussion, you're going to see the impact that it has on that package that you can receive from MURBS that will sustain you if you have chronic disease. So not our area of expertise, but we see that it impacts so much on the ability for you to retire and have a dignified retirement, which is really aim for the scheme if you're not healthy. So that I am going to leave with you, really. Healthy mind and healthy body. Whichever way you can, start to work on it, reduce your stress, because retirement really requires that you are not disturbed mentally, and your body is also not disturbed by any affliction. So that is as much as I'll say on that. So what should we be thinking about, whether at retirement or before, way before? There are certain principles which you may think about as you approach that date. So we've really reduced it in a very sequential way to say that, you know, what you don't plan for is not going to happen. So plan for it, save for it, invest for it, and when it comes, enjoy it. Because it's a time when ideally you're supposed to be reaping the benefit of your hard work. This is the time you're supposed to enjoy with your family that you have been away from because of a job. You're supposed to enjoy with your spouse that you have been away from because of a job and other commitments, but also with yourself, because you can now 100% focus. Retirement usually coincides with children growing up and leaving the home. So you could be very selfish and say this is your time to enjoy your life. But that enjoying really requires some planning. There's a quote which is, planning is really just bringing the future into the present so that you can do something about it now. So you're trying to control your future with every plan that you do, not just finances, even, you know, in your jobs, in what the end result will be, bringing it into the present and trying to control it in one way or the other by assigning tasks for finances, by maybe saving money, by investing it. What you're trying to do is control the result of the future, because we can only imagine the future. But if you plan for it, you can, in a way, try to influence how that future will come about. So in terms of planning, And I got a request to use live examples and in a way to also translate where I can. So in terms of planning, I hope, and the secretary talked about this, that I think Human Resources Department sends out notifications or emails on when you're supposed to retire. But in all fairness, everyone knows their age status. I don't think there's anyone who has any doubt about that. Now, after knowing your age, you also know the retirement age of the role that you're doing. And even if it's not retirement, you know the day, for example, that you would like to leave the university or your current employer. You know, you say, I'm here, but in 5 years, I will be moving on. Or if the job is that good, and I'm told that these days after the salary enhancements, the job really is that good, you know your retirement age. If you're 40, you know how long you have to go. Maybe if you're 60, it's too late. You're waiting for the email. So the first aspect of planning is don't be surprised by that date. Don't communication from human sources you that you have 6 months. You hold your head and wonder where the time went, how busy you have been. No. When you're planning for retirement, please, as I said, be selfish, think about yourself, and know the day when you will leave the university. Even if you plan to become a consultant, even if you plan to ask for a 1-year extension, some short assignment, know that on this day, I will be leaving. And it helps you that you also receive statements from the scheme, and every statement you receive shows you how much money you have. So know the day, write it down, and have it like your birthday, and say on this day, I will, because retirement is also about accepting that I will leave at this time. So you're not shocked, you're not, psychologically, if you start off a plan by panicking, I can assure you that plan is not going to work. So, nganvunula, olunaku lw'oliva mu mulimu gwa university olumanyi. Oba tolumanyi, tonaba kululowoozaako bulowooza, naye nga olina emyaka gimanyi, retirement age ya university ogimanyi. So olunaku oluwandiike, write it down and be proud of it, because it then helps you to accept that there's life after the university. There's life after your employer, there's life after the project, or whatever it is that you're doing. The next thing is to come up with a simple plan, and that simple plan could be something like this, that if I earn 5 million shillings net, or 7 or 10, whatever it is, that is the money that I would like to keep receiving after I leave the university, or after I leave my current employer. To have it mentally and say, I am comfortable with 5, I think I would like to keep earning that 5. Or you could say, if I'm not driving into town, if I'm not buying expensive fuel, or, I have my garden where I get my food, I can live off maybe half, 3/4. You do not need to drive the same car, the same shoes, you don't need social acceptance based on materiality. If you cannot get yourself to accept that, you will be a professor in mathematics and in economics. You will know what causes depressions and demand supply curves, and you will be very broke. Not because you don't know the theory or the concept, but you don't know the psychological aspect, and you'll fail to address with it. Let me go through these quickly. So looking back in hindsight, many retirees, when asked what did they not give enough attention, underestimating the impact of inflation. This I'm going to break down for you. Survey bwe bagikola nga babuuza abantu abali mu retirement, nga bababuuza ensobi ze baakola nga tebannayingira retirement yaabwe, bye bino bye basinga okuddamu. So underestimating the impact of inflation is simply not being alive to the fact that you live, especially if you're healthy, if you've been looking after your health, that you will live for a very long time after you leave your job. You will be alive for a very long time. If you're healthy, if you're active, you could be alive for longer than you have been working. Because when you're in retirement, you feel like, because then you have worked for 40 years. But if you retire at 60 and you live up to 90, that is a very long time. So it is easy for you to underestimate the rate at which prices of basic goods will increase. The basics, fuel, yaka, water, because this is what you need in your retirement. If you look at 2024 and you look back 30 years, 1994. Now, if you retired in 1994 and you're still alive now, can you imagine the shock at the price of everything? The price of fuel, the price of sugar, the price of soap, the price of the most basic things, the price of a matchbox, which was 10 shillings or whatever in 1994 and is 500 shillings now. It is shocking because now, okay, I imagine many of us were alive in 1994. It's unbelievable. It's really unbelievable. Fuel was maybe 500 shillings, now 5,000. But all this time, you've been alive. If you left your job in 1994, you've been alive, and let us say you had a good plan, a good retirement plan. It has been shaken up. It has been cleared just by the general increase. Those of you who, all of us, I imagine, at some point used taxis from 100 shillings or 200 shillings, and now the cheapest one they get to mini price is 1,000 shillings, 1,500. It was unbelievable. That was money that would take you to Entebbe from the old park. But such is the nature of inflation. So many say they underestimated that. The other, which is very closely related, is underestimating how long you will live. Because when you retire, you say, you start talking about the past, not knowing how long the future is. It's a very long time. So many underestimated that. Overestimating investment income. To think that you have invested so well that that money will take you very far. You've built your mizigo, you have your farm, and you say, I'll do well. So that's another mistake. Investing too conservatively. This is the reverse of investing too aggressively. Investing too conservatively means that you are so scared of losing the money that, and this has happened to especially our parents, but also many senior citizens. They'll say don't touch my money. Just leave it in the bank. Don't touch it. I've lost so much money over the course of my life. I'm not willing to lose. By doing that, you are destroying the value of your money. So being too conservative is also a problem. The other, setting unrealistic expectations in terms of return. To get your 200, I'll keep using 200 million as a figure. To get it and think that you have earned, the scheme has been around for about 15 years. To think that the money you have earned over 15 years, you can double in 1 year. Now we've already talked about how that story goes. Forgetting healthcare costs. The misfortune about Uganda, we've not had healthcare insurance for senior citizens. And I hope this is something that is being addressed in one way or the other. We've not had healthcare insurance. So you get to a certain age when you need the insurance the most, and there's none. So every headache, every backache, every muscle pain that you get, you have, okay, to be honest, you have to call your son or your daughter and say, my back is aching. What should I do? Hey, daddy, kanzije nkutwale mudwaliro. So, but that burden is yours. It should not be extended to your children. So I'm going to go through the others fairly quickly. Failing to understand income sources. Those of you who have a nimiro, a garden, or a farm, as you know, the more well-to-do would like to call. I have a farm. Is that farm a source of income, or is it a source of depletion of your savings? And the mistake, of course, the confusion that exists is that on Saturday or on Friday, many of those who work Monday to Friday, you get into your car, you drive maybe an hour, you go to your farm, and there's the bananas, there's, you know, there's everything. There are goats, there are cows, there's coffee, whatever it is. You've spent maybe 120,000 going to the farm. On the way back, you cut maybe 4 batches of matoke. You get, you know, a chicken, you get this ndagala, and you come back. And you say, you know, I have my farm and it's very productive. But in all honesty, if you had gone to Nakawa market and bought that matoke, you'd be better off. You've wasted time, you're tired, economically, you have done nothing. Yes, you have come back with some goods in your car, but you've spent 130,000 fueling your car to go there. And of course, if you have a farm, you know that the minute you arrive, there are those you have to pay. The manager, this happened, this one died. There's a small payroll. It may not be formal, but it's there. You have to pay people 5,000, 10,000, you know, this happened. So you spend maybe another 50,000. But you come back and you feel that you are very productive, or that you have a venture. You have failed to understand what that farm is to you. Really, at best, it is a hobby. So the others, underestimating real estate costs, investing too aggressively, I think we've really addressed that. So let us now go to the options. Something which, of course, everyone would like to hear about. But I had indicated, maybe I need some help with the scrolling. I had indicated that without a plan, these things are really a waste of time. So by the time you get your money from the scheme, by the time you're a retiree, from our discussion, I would expect that you have some basic sketch that I would like to live off this for this amount of time, so much, so much. To get that money and say, where do I put it now? We've seen that it leads to ruin. What options do we have for investment? Before I go to the more tangible options that members ask for all the time, compare for me land versus the bond versus rentals versus what? If you can address the issue of health, do it through a healthcare plan, through health insurance. There are insurance companies that are responding to this need now, offering insurance for retirees, for those above, the usual, above 65, 70. The next thing is have an emergency fund. This is now in finance theory, an emergency fund should ideally be about 6 months worth of your pay. Now, we already talked about the emergencies. Those ones, I don't think you can honestly avoid them. You cannot be that lucky that you have no emergency, your wife or husband has no emergency, their siblings, their children, it's very, very rare. Unless you're going to say that in the outside of my nuclear family, I don't. And that's really not a good way to live. You may be financially okay, but the healthy mind we talked about, you won't be at peace if your brother's child has no school fees. To say, me, the nakola kati, why didn't they work or whatever? It's not our culture or our society. Now, after that, we can then address the real stuff, what we call the bonds, the treasury bills, the fixed deposits. Equity is buying a stake in a business or in a venture, but we are going to get into that as we move along. So, sorry, the scrolling is a bit of a problem. What I wanted to demonstrate there was the impact of a health care emergency on your retirement planning. And we were all alive when COVID came around, and we saw what it did to families. Even very wealthy families went through very tough times. And who is to say that there will not be another incident of the sort? But the sort of impact it had was that for the people who had plans already, and this is a US-based study, for those who had plans already, who are thinking, I know the date I'm going to retire, I know how much I'm going to retire on, I know all these things, 30% of them had to push forward their retirement plans. And that someone already has a plan. Now, if you have no plan, imagine what getting or falling sick of COVID could do to you. And not even you or a relative of yours. And it happened. It's not imagination. It happened to many of us. To be told that oxygen is 1 million shillings every day, or 500 or 600, and in the unfortunate case, you spend so much money and your loved one still dies. When they die, it doesn't mean that your money comes back. That money has now gone with a bad outcome, and it has set you back considerably. So I will, if you follow, I will try to emphasize the issue of the medical emergencies. So we are going to go to the planning tools. What can help you to plan? This is an exercise of someone who has gone through the question and answer of how much do I need per month for a lively existence after my retirement. How much do I need? And you say maybe 3 million is enough, or 4 or 5. Taking into account inflation, the 3 million of 1994 is nowhere close to the 3 million of this day. So in terms of planning tools, and these are things many of us are very familiar with, but even if you're not, I will go through them. So why do I call them planning tools as opposed to investments? The reason why you get involved in any of this is because it is part of your plan. You know that if I buy a bond, it is addressing my need to earn 3 million shillings a month. If I buy a treasury bill, it is satisfying my need to have so much money. If I say involve myself in an investment club where they pay interest, it is satisfying the need. So do not get your money and go and say, I would like to invest it when it is not meeting any need in your plan. Because it is very easy to make a good investment, which gives you a good return, which return carries you away. And you say, if you are retirement, I don't know why people are really wasting our time. This is such an easy thing. And you start to eat the money as it comes in, and 10 years down the road, you realize that, I actually had no plan. What I had was an investment. But an investment without a plan really is useless, because it doesn't seek to address any need that you have. It is simply, bifu natural or whatever the return is being promised. So you could plan using bonds. We're going to go through that. Treasury bills. You can be a member of an investment club. The reason why investment clubs and circles work very, very much, I think, again, is psychological. It's still a behavioral finance issue. That most of these clubs have people that you know already. So you're comfortable saving with people from the same department, from the same church, from the same village, from the same. So let us not discount that aspect of life. We are social beings. And if you find one that is serious, I know you will do your research. It doesn't hurt to be part of that. The other is, the last two are, there's what we call annuities or a drawdown fund. Now, an annuity is where you get your money, you take it to an insurance company and say, I have 300 million. How much can you give me every month for the rest of my life? And they will, they will look at mortality tables, whatever. They will do actuarial valuations, and they will tell you, for that money, we'll be able to pay you maybe 2 million shillings until you die. And what happens when I die? Nothing. That's it. So now you see, yes, you have covered the risk, but for someone who plans or who is more diligent, I think you have also given away your asset. That's just my view. Those who sell annuities will tell you different. But yes, if I retired today and I lived for 2 more years, and yes, you have been paying me monthly, but now I'm gone and my next of kin or my people don't have anything left over, I feel like maybe you could have done better in your planning. But it's an option that's available, really, without discounting it. Drawdown funds is very similar. You say, I have this much money and I would like to invest it for 10 years. But in those 10 years, I am receiving maybe so much, 2 million shillings a month. You receive the 2 million shillings, it is being invested while you're also consuming some of it. So the return of that ideally has to be more than what you're taking out. That is an option. The beauty of that, you retain the asset, you retain your money. So 10 years down the road, you say, okay, I've eaten 30, but the 300 has made 40. Okay, now I have 310. It's an option. But whatever you do not eat the capital. Whatever you do not eat the capital. Let me translate in the Kampala talk. Ebirala byonna bikole naye tolya capital. That money, when spent poorly, will lead you to ruin, financial ruin. For you to get that retirement lump sum payout, and there are laws that are being thought about in this avenue. In other countries, they do not allow a retiree to take all their money because they know what you're going to do. Or at least studies have shown that if you are used to 3 million shillings a month and you get 300, by the time you stabilize to say, okay, let me now be reasonable, at the very least, 100 is gone. At the very least, because when you have money in your pocket, that's when you remember that my shoe does not feel like, the shoe of a 300 million shilling holder. My car does not feel like the sort of car that I should be driving to the village. The village house, even if we don't stay there, it now needs, don't eat that capital. Plan to invest that money so that you utilize the earnings of that money, because those ones keep coming. But that money, when eaten, it's almost a curse that when you eat it, you will not get a similar amount of money again. You will not. And you think you're 60, but when you're 70 and you are not earning and you are calling your children, you're cursing them, how they don't visit you, it's not fair on them. You want the children to come, but it's not that you want to see them, but they carry sugar or meat or whatever. You look forward to those visits because they come with something. It's, as someone who has worked at Makerere, really, I think we need to expect more from ourselves. Let our connection with our relatives be out of love than out of need, which happens a lot. I think we all know someone who we can mention that this old man, he was very strong when he was here, but now things are not looking so good. So we're going to look at now the specifics of those items, the bonds, the bills. We will also look at rentals, because in all my discussions with people who are about to retire, you cannot shake them off rentals. However, whatever you say, they will say, me, I have land in Chitukutwe, which now I've got. I'm going to build 3 of them, or I'm going to buy, and then I have no qualms with you, but we're also going to look at it. So for the bonds, a bond is when you lend government money, is when you lend government your money. They promise to pay you back. They have a calendar. They'll tell you, if you lend us 100 million or 200 million or 300 million, we'll pay you a certain amount of money every year. They pay it twice a year. Now, the thing about bonds is that for a very large extent, they are very safe. For a very large extent, they are very safe. They may not address other things or issues, but they will pay your interest. The reason why the PSST, Ramadan Gov, is having sleepless nights is because MURBS has lent government money and we want it back. Because we have to declare interest to the members. So, I mean, talking very big figures, but the fund has lent a lot of money to government and it pays on time. Because government has the ability to do what none of us can do, which is a very poor habit, to keep on borrowing to pay the person who is demanding. So for them, they can do it. Every month, government borrows, I think about in the region of 800 billion shillings every month. But that most of it now is you're borrowing, you pay. But the government is here for in perpetuity. It's not a regime. It's not a regime. Even money which commitments that were made by past presidents, past regimes are still due on this regime. So don't fear that, you know, when your color is not in favor anymore, if red comes or blue, what happens? It's a government borrowing. So bonds are when you lend government money. A bond can help you plan for a very long term. There are some bonds that are 20 years. Now, if you think you're going to be alive for another 20 years and you buy a government bond, it can give you the ability to project interest for the next 20 years. So that is a feature which is not easy to get in other options. It's not an easy one, but it's safe. The cash flow is clear. You will get your money back. Now, I don't want to talk about circumstances where, you know, governments have defaulted, because we don't think we'll be there, but it's a very small possibility that yes, Ghana or Argentina or whatever governments have renegotiated their debt obligations. But for ease of discussion, government issues a calendar. They are very good borrowers. They know when they will borrow. Every year they will tell you, we are going to borrow in the budget, you know, 3 trillion shillings, and this is how we'll borrow it. So in your research, as someone who is preparing for retirement, please look into this. We cannot exhaust the intricacies of bonds in this one discussion, but note it down and say, okay, I am going to read more on bonds as a tool, not as an investment, but as a tool for planning your retirement. Because the only thing you want from the bond is the cash flows that will help you to survive. Nothing fancy. You're using it as a planning tool. So there's a prospectus, and in the prospectus, the prospectus, how do I put it? Government bwebange newola elaga ennaku weri kusasula for as long as the bond is in existence. So right now, I know that bwempola government million chikumi, that in 2042, on this day, government owes me so much money. And they have been very consistent with paying. And by they, I mean us. We are the taxpayers. We are the ones who pay. It's not the people at Ministry of Finance or Bank of Uganda. They will come, they tax you, your pay as you earn, it goes full circle, just goes like that and comes back to you in an interest payment on a bond. So a bond is a very good planning tool if you want to get into something like that. We used a small example here. These are the new bonds, the newest bond. It goes up to June of 2039. It pays interest for 200 million shillings. It pays interest on these debts up to June of 2039. They are very predictable. Pays 14 million shillings every 6 months. I'll go through this quickly because it requires a lot of detail, but just to show you how it works. So every 6 months, you're getting 14 million shillings for the next close to 20 years. It's something that is worth considering, especially when you're looking at retirement. So treasury bills, this information that I'm showing you is usually in newspapers. It's there. They will invite, they'll say, then we will respond, those of us who invest on your behalf, will respond and say, okay, would like to lend the government so much money, but anyone can do it. It's not just a scheme affair. You with your 100,000 shillings, 200,000, you can do it. I wish everyone would buy a bond at the very least and see how it works. I wish every Ugandan, not because we are here to support the government, but honestly, it is phenomenal in terms of planning. It really helps to plan. I cannot emphasize that enough. Treasury bills is short term for up to 1 year. So government comes and says, I would like to borrow for 1 year. You lend them for 1 year, they pay you, and you say, okay, they've paid, let me lend them again, they pay you. So if in your view, you think Uganda might end in 2026, you can buy treasury bills. Say, me, I'll keep. You pay me, I check the temperature around, I add you, you pay me, I check the temperature. A treasury bill is also something that is good. But both of them, you're lending to the government of Uganda, not the regime, but the government, and they've been very consistent in paying back. That is an example. The beauty of a treasury bill is that when you indicate that I would like to lend you 200 million shillings over bw'ogamba nti njagala bawola kuba obawola government kuwola million bibiri, the net impact, how that transaction works is that the deduction from your account will be less the interest. So they will take off your account maybe 170, this is an example, 175 million shillings from your account. But when they are paying you, they'll pay you the 200. So the difference is your interest. That's how a treasury bill works. But please, in the interest of time, I see we've moved quite a bit. So another planning tool, and these opportunities are also increasing, is an income drawdown. I give you 300 million shillings, you pay me every month, but because you have invested my money, it is still growing. So it grows as you're paying me for my existence. So that is also another tool which is very good. As a retiree, and this is where we started from, as a retiree or someone planning for retirement, your focus should be on what is going to help me get money into my pocket frequently, because your salary is not coming anymore. So what is going to, maybe every 2 months or every month, and that's why yeah, me, I'm a rental man, because on 30th, I'll move around and the money, because he knows it keeps him going. Annuity, same thing. They're usually insurance products. And the insurer guarantees that they'll give you that money for the rest of your life. So, but I mean, of course, the insurance firm will take some details of you before they guarantee. The things we've been talking about, do you have when they're asking you if you've ever had an operation in this insurance cash odds, or if you have a do you have a hereditary disease, you know the truth. They are checking how long you're going to be around. That's really what they are doing. They are not really, they are not your friends. They are saying this person, if we guarantee them this much, how long are they going to be with us? Because why would someone want to know if you've ever had an operation? I'm here, I'm alive, I have my money. What does the operation have to do with anything? But they're running their numbers because the business. So the annuities are also a good way of looking at things. Now, to our favorite rentals, rental unit. I will say this without fear of contradiction, that the yield, or what you call return, interest, earning on real estate as a sector is between 8 to 11%. 8 to 11% from a real return basis. Now, the bonds can go up to 15%, the treasury bills 14%, but the rentals, because you can see them, you can touch them, you can take your children there, you can go and walk around as the landlord, so that your tenants say, landlord, wali. They have psychologically, there's a reward which they give people. And that's why people really love them. That, you know, as you drive by, you point and say, Obyumba bwange buliao, which you can't do with a bond. You know, you can't show off to anyone in your village that you own a bond, because they'll say, this one is, you know, is fond of telling stories. But Obuyumba, the rentals, those ones, they are very, 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 people love them. Even if you tell them that the return is nowhere compared to what another avenue will give you. And here we are talking someone who has bought the rentals, because if you get that 300 and you dare to start construction of rentals, you might end up as someone who has eaten the capital. Because if you get to some point, you get to the beam or roofing or finishing, and you have run out of money. Now you're in trouble, because you have to compromise the quality, you have to borrow. You're going into the things that we talked about not to do. But so that you finish, you'll do whatever it takes. And that's why you'll find many of them, to be fair, are not, very high quality construction, because the owner knows this is not for me, and they will, as quickly, so that someone can move in and start to get them. But if you get the money and buy, which is, the quicker turnaround, is that, yeah, you have to pay taxes now on these rentals. The unseen costs are the vacancy, the period between tenants moving out. Now that can't be modeled in an Excel sheet, or it can't, because once a tenant moves out, the next ones, if they are decent, they'll want new sanitary ware, they'll want a new coat of paint, they'll want the wardrobes fixed, they'll want lights, they are going to ask you for security, they're going to ask for all sorts of things. Now, of course, when you're computing for, you think the house is just bringing, but you must put back into that house. If it is going to remain worthwhile, you must keep putting back money. So it is something that you need to consider with full knowledge. Don't look at 500,000 a month times 20 years. No, look at How much am I going to put back into this this house? So from our really, and we do some real estate advisory to investors. The return between 8 to 10 net after you have dealt with all the costs. It is something that, but also talk to people who have done it. Maybe they've figured out a market segment. You say, abaka kade, much gezi. You get the ones of 80,000 a night. As soon as this one leaves, another one comes, because now there's very high turnover. But in your retirement, is that something you want to be involved in? Because the cheaper it is, to be fair, the lower the quality of tenant. And the lower the quality of tenant, naturally, the more the problems. You won't have high vacancies, but people will come, they will move at night. People will come, as they are moving, they steal the bulbs. Now, it's quite, it's quite something, but that is, it's an area where you can, this here is a risk profile for, retirement investments. The summary of this is that risks should be low when you're thinking about an investment for retirement. Low risk, and it should be fairly liquid. Liquid means you can convert it to cash very easily. It should, because of what we talked about, the emergencies, the medical emergencies, the personal emergencies, and the fact that you also need to survive, you need money. It should be, there should be that transition. The problem that we have with the very wealthy generation, maybe a generation back, is that they have or had a lot of assets. They had a lot of land. And anyone who knows the families that were talked of as wealthy, the owners of Wandegea, I mean, the people who donated land to the university, the one thing they had was land. Did they have money? No, but they had a lot of land. And they said, we are the class, the landed class. But if you try to sell a square mile of land in Mitiana, when you have a sick child or wife or husband, you will then know that actually you are not as wealthy as you thought, because you could spend 2, 3, 4 years before you convert that land into money. So while it is a sign of a lot of wealth for many of us, and it is true that land can be a very productive asset, it should not be your prime retirement planning tool. It really shouldn't. Don't get your money and go and buy land, please, because that land has to become productive. And if it's not productive, it is useless. You have to fence it, you have to visit it, you have to put caveats, because people are trying to steal it. That's the truth. Now, are you getting anything from it? No. People get containers, put them there, maybe rear some goats, but it's not, unless land is productive and you've made it productive in your productive years, land is not necessarily a good asset to have, or a good asset to spend your retirement money on. You should be putting money where it can generate more money to sustain you alive. As I conclude, again, this is another study which is very similar to the one that we saw earlier, and it only speaks to the consistency of concerns in retirement. Study done by Northwestern Mutual, it's a financial services company, about regrets or things that were not imagined, or fears top of the list again, having an unplanned emergency is the biggest threat to your financial well-being in retirement. Even now, let's be honest, even now when you have a job, if you get a financial, rather an emergency, unplanned, the only positive or good things that you can borrow from your employer, you can take an advance, you can borrow from your workmates because they know where you work, so they can help you out. But later in life, an unplanned emergency is a big threat. So you must plan for it. Before you buy all these fancy things, have money that is quickly convertible to cash, or have an investment. An unplanned medical expense due to illness, those two are related, but healthcare is a cost that only goes up. Those of you who have been to Nakasero Hospital or any facility that you'd be proud to say, oh, you know, I went here for treatment, even if it's just a neighborhood clinic. It's unbelievable. It really is unbelievable. If you walk into a good hospital with malaria, by the time you walk out, you're thinking, okay, how do the other people survive with malaria? Because you have spent maybe 200,000 shillings on such a simple, treatable disease. So it gets you thinking that how is everyone else surviving? And that's why in some parts of the country, really, we have the unfortunate demise of people over things that are really preventable. So now, if you get something chronic, something lifestyle related, really, just try not to. Do not, even if it's in your genes that all of us get this disease, please try and fight it. Eat well, work out, sleep, look after yourself. Because when you get a chronic illness at 60, it is a very real threat. First, destroys your financial position. It then attacks your families because your children can't leave you alone. And it does not have any promise of redemption. So by the time you pass on, you've destroyed not just yours, you have left no inheritance. Even your children are now in dire straits because you could not stop eating 3 chapatis a day for 20 years. It's irresponsible. You must address that. So the other fear, having insufficient savings to retire, that one it can be addressed quickly with a plan. This is what I need monthly. In MURBS, I have 200. Somewhere else, I have 100. In the circle, I have 300. If I invest it, this is the sort of cash flow I expect. It will get you there. Outliving my retirement savings. That was also another fear, that you've planned for 20, you're alive for 30. Now, what happens? Social safety net. Now you start calling the children, but it's a big fear. Becoming a financial burden, and there are many of us, really myself included, who are, when you're working, you're very proud of what you do. You're very, you talk about it with a lot of gusto and to imagine that one day you will become a financial burden to someone else, worse still to your children, it's a very big concern, because really we are keeping the next generation in poverty, or we are keeping them from achieving their true potential because we are tagging at them. So that was another fear. Inability to afford healthcare, that one is real. Losing my job, before retirement, also it's a big fear, because that one disrupts because you had a retirement date of this, you have plans based on it, and you've lost the job. If you're laid off, there's only so much you can do. But, you know, as you get close to retirement, the only thing I can say, maybe just avoid deals at work. Avoid anything that will get you fired. Those are now things for really younger, much younger, who can go and look, but you're 59, you're retiring at 60, you are caught up in a scandal. The employer says, I am going to retain these benefits because of your character. It's, again, quite psychological. Death of primary breadwinner. This is also a fear where some of us have it, others don't. But there are those of us who plan on others, who say, hey, I hope my wife does not predecease me because she's the one who pays she's the one who goes to Nakasero market, she's the one who goes to Capital Shoppers. Or you say, me, my hope is on my wife staying alive longer than me. Speaking as a man, the beauty is, generally speaking, women will outlive their spouses. So I think it is it's a concern that most men don't have. They say, no, my wife will be around. And even when you're doing your will and all that, say, umchala, she will see how to manage with it's very rare that men plan that the wife will predecease them. Having poor credit, this is debt, bad debts. What are you doing taking salary advances at 59? What are you going to do really that you did not do when you are younger? It's an issue, but sometimes it's inevitable because of the issues we've seen. Medical emergencies, children, siblings, children have to go back to school, you find yourself borrowing. So it's also another concern. As I conclude, 5 minutes, what do you need to do now, today? You must act on a plan. I'm sure many of you came here thinking we are going to go away with options, whether bonds or rentals or land, farming. But without a plan, all that is of no use. A plan must have certain dates. This is the date I will leave Makerere if I am living on my own volition, or if I fail and the university has to retire me, this is the date. On that date, I will stop earning money from here. On that date, they said 13 days is the most. 13 days from that date, I will receive my 200 million shillings because it's there. You receive a statement every year. You know the money is there. So don't act surprised when it hits your account and you now start acting like you never expected the money. It is going to come. And you know that when it comes, for me to stay alive for the next 30 years, I need 2 million shillings. The way I can do that is to invest that 200 million shillings in a bond or rentals or whatever it is that is going to give me 24 million shillings a year. That translates to 2 million shillings a month. I will be okay if I have a plan. Now, with that plan, you have set a very good basis. Then you're still working, you still have other ventures, you're still part of other investments. You, again, draw mini plans. Have 5 plans. Say, if I get 1 from MURBS and I get 2 from here and I get 3 from there, I'll be fine. Now, that is what deals with the mentor, what we started with, the healthy mind. A healthy mind is one that is without fears. You know that on this day, I will live I am okay with it because I have a plan. I will be earning this much. And I am looking after myself. I have a healthy body. I go for checkups. I eat well. I exercise. I sleep well. I try to reduce on stress. So I will be fine. Ladies and gentlemen, I cannot add on from where I am right now. Have the plan. And it will address your psychological needs. It will address your physical, biological needs as being healthy. And if you have those two, it then becomes easier for you to address your financial needs, healthy finances. You're not going to be shocked with a huge, medical emergency. And if you're shocked, you have an emergency pool because you planned for it. And that, ladies and gentlemen, I find is the biggest weakness or letdown for those who are planning for retirement and those who are in retirement. Money finding you when you're not ready for it. Unfortunately, however brilliant you are as a human being, that is a psychological situation. It's not logical, it's not mental, it's not. The most brilliant people in the world, if they get money and they have not planned for it, that money will vanish. So it does not mean that you're stupid or that you're clever or that you're in between. But if you don't have a plan, really, it's going. So let's get planning. The planning tools are available. We touched on them. We are available. The scheme has done an excellent job of inviting us in. And we are still, we can work with you on your plan. But the next person who calls me to ask, I have got my 300 million, where can I put it? I'm not going to give an answer because we have had this discussion. You should be the one telling me that this is my plan. This is how I plan to deploy it. Does it make sense? And I say, have you thought of this? Have you thought of this? You say, yes, I thought of it. Okay, let's give you the planning tools. But without a plan, I cannot help you. No one can help you, actually. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you very much, George. Kindly allow us to have the Q&A session after the two testimonies that we're going to have. We're going to just have, it will only take about 5 minutes. We shall have two of our retirees sharing their experiences. And then we shall have the Q&A session. Otherwise, let's give George another. Thank you very much. And so we shall have Dr. John Kawongolo, who is one of our retirees, to come and share his experience in just a few minutes, very few minutes. Thank you. Dr. George, you're welcome. Dr. John, you're welcome.
Yeah. Thank you very much for inviting me here. All protocols observed. I'm one of the retirees of MURBS. I just have a very simple testimony. However, allow me to introduce myself. I'm Reverend Dr. John Kawongolo. So don't be surprised. See, when I joined this university, somewhere way back in 1991, and retired recently last year in 2023. Hardly a year. Till September, I've not finished September yet to have a complete year. However, all what he has said is correct. Planning is very important because we were getting those statements and you sit down and say, what am I going to do after I've left this place? However, maybe on my side, I could be lucky because way back sometime, I got born again. And when I was at the university here, I was being referred to as a bishop. Those guidances and growing up in the fear of God, it has helped me a lot. And before I give my testimony, I think it has come at the right time where we are going to have a very big conference or crusade we refer to as the second patriotic youth mega crusade with the Prophet David under the Church of Universal Apostles Fellowship Church of Righteousness. And the main theme, remember your Creator in the days of your youth before the days of evil come. It is obtained from Ecclesiastes chapter 12, verse 1. Basically, in this church, just to say one thing, is that we have 4 major pillars which are very critical in life. 1, righteousness, very clear in the Bible. Way back when God called Abraham, that you come, I'll take you to the new land, but you must be righteous. And everybody knows that. 2 is marriage. He talked about women, they die, they stay longer, but that is God-given. Because we had those plans with my wife, and unfortunately she passed on. All the wills were cancelled. Now they are turned into a different names. 3, because marriage is very critical, and we subscribe to 1 man, 1 wife. No fiancé, no boyfriend. But as it was for Isaac, the child of Abraham, they just brought a wife to her. And he was very happy with her. And he came up with a very big nation. 3 is court. Not this high court here, but see, when you want good things, you must judge. The Bible puts it clearly that anyone calling himself a brother and he does A, B, C, it's better you excommunicate that person. And people fear. That's why in the Old Testament, they were just say, if somebody does that thing, bring him out, stone him to death. But here you are given a chance. Say, please go out. After a number of communication, discussion, helping him so that he can live a good life. But if it fails, that is the last resort. And finally, working for sustainability. That is very key. Although some people say, Chitwale. No. God, when he created Adam and Eve, he made a garden of Eden where he put Adam to work. So if you don't want to work, don't expect anything free. So with that growing up and upcoming, it helped me a lot when I started getting a letter that you are going to retire. For me, I knew we were very lucky that we were the first people to get the mid-term, which came. And that mid-term did a lot to supplement what I was doing on my farm, expanded my bit of my land. And when I got to this last bit, I had to continue because I had experience in what I'm going to do, and has kept me on, and I don't regret. Instead, what I said that, oh, I wish if I had got an early retirement, I would be better off. See, the money you get from there, although people say it is a data place, it is even more than the money we get when we are getting salary. Because by the time it comes, you already have some loans, it is already portioned the second week. So, investment, planning to invest. Sir, I thank you very much for whatever you have discussed. That is why it says, remember your Creator in the days of your youth. When you are still here, it's better to remember that at one time, however much people like you, if you are unfortunate, when you pass on, when you are still working, it is worse. People forget you very fast. I had my mentor, Dr. Chivalama, for the old people know him. He was in agriculture. Was the head of the Department of Agriculture Engineering. It was unfortunate that he passed on when he was still here, but when I saw hardly 2 months, everybody had forgotten about him. I said, oh, I better plan for my life. If I go, unfortunately, when I'm still working, I'll leave something for my children. But fortunately, God helped me, and I retired when I'm still alive. But it didn't make a very big impact. So when you are working, people think that let me do a lot, because if I'm not there, nothing can take place. No, you are deceiving yourself. Set aside time for your life. So that is how I used my MURBS money. Fortunately, because of that thinking, I got a scholarship to go to US, and I was there for 2 years. When they wanted to change my project, I said, no, I need to plan my soft landing. And I was very lucky that the project I chose to do, it landed me somewhere where I'm just getting something small put in my what? My investment, which is growing. Just I have around 100 acres of land, which I got from MURBS, and it's doing well. So that is a simple testimony. Remember your Creator in the days of the youth. That statement, whatever you do, put him ahead, and you'll get him out of here. So when you are still here, especially those ones who have just finished, good, struggle, do projects to do what? To publish, become professor. What next? Because the more projects you do, the more time it takes from you, that you have very little time to plan for your life after retirement. So my simple message is start planning. At the age of 50, try to set a time aside that you pray that God gives you the 60 years, but set time aside for your family and for your investment. That when this big money comes, it finds you somewhere. He said, I vibrate you. You get 200 million, 2-3 months along the road, and you start asking, one time I had money, but now. And those annuities, those small investments outside, they are also critical. I thank God that I'm also a member somewhere, which is also helping me to top up what I have. So, in simple terms, as I said, I'll be so brief. Plan with the little money to start investing. That by the time you go, you don't have to pay school fees. Every business you start, you pay school fees. How? You get losses. But at least after 2, 3, 4 years, you'll have gained the experience that when you put in more money, you are not again starting with paying school fees, but you are actualizing what you started on, and bear with me, you'll reap big. Thank you very much. Finally, I have some of these flyers. This is very important. This is the gift we have in the whole world, and more especially in Africa. Leave alone those who masquerade to be prophets, but this one is real. Prophet David, and that's why I don't have problems. He mentioned health. Health is a problem. But if you trust in God, I'm telling you, those things, the chronic diseases, they disappear. Very simple testimony from my life. When COVID had started, I suffered COVID. But by the word of prayer, I was healed. I got a stroke in 2020. Real, this changed. But the word of prayer, he prayed for me and told me, be healed. And I was. And that was the last time I took the tablets of pressure. I'm okay. It's not that we are preaching miracles. No, but the moment you trust in the Lord, he says, his eyes is on the righteous, and his ears to hear their prayer. I'm not so much threatened by the health problems. So, you can pick a flyer. We are going to be in Kaliro District, Chirama. However, it is going to be broadcasted live on Spark TV from 10 to 11, and from 1 to 5. 1 to 5 is the best because there you have the message. 10 to 11, a lot of music will be there and other testimonies. So thank you very much for inviting me. It has helped me even to pass this very important announcement. People can laugh, but I'm telling you, everybody here says, I must work and go to heaven. No, you don't just go. It's like investing. You don't just hope to get money. Yeah. When you have not invested and when you are not working. So if you don't perform righteousness, today could be the last time to meet me. And thank you very much. And you are all invited to this crusade, or stay in your house. on Sparker TV. God bless you.
Thank you very much, Doctor. You heard well from the doctor. His investment was farming, 100 acres of land, and we thank you for this testimony. And now we shall have the final testimony. She has promised to be brief. Dr. Jane Francis, hello, you're welcome. Please clap for her as she comes.
Thank you so much, Becky. Fellow members of MURBS. It's a pleasure for me to be here. I'm a retired member of MURBS, and I was also a MURBS ambassador. So I'm really happy that you've invited me to share with you my experience of using two tools that the previous presenter has already helped me and done half the job. In fact, most of the job. A unit trust, in my case, a UAP unit trust, and an annuity, which is in fact a product that MURBS has negotiated for us with ICEA, and my experience of doing so. First of all, I think I really congratulate all of you who are here. You won't believe it, whichever many years you have ahead, how good it was that you were here, and how good it is that you had the information he gave us, the information our previous speaker shared for us. It may not mean a lot to you now, but when you retire, you'll say, oh my God, I'm so glad I had that. And I'd like to thank MURBS for having made me an ambassador, because like he explained, when you become a MURBS ambassador, you go through the entire training that the trustees go through. So I had the privilege of also knowing some of these things. And let's not forget to thank Makerere University that makes a contribution to this, because without their contribution, we wouldn't really be able to have any retirement benefit to talk about. I'm going to be really brief, and just when one of my friends saw this flyer, she said, oh, Jane, you are an expert on investment. You're going to really tell us how to invest. No, I'm not an expert on investment. I'm a user of the knowledge that we were given, and I'm a learner. So I'm just going to share with you what I learned, and hope some of what I learned may be useful to you. So before I went into retirement, what are some of the things, because this is investment before retirement and after retirement, what are some of the things that helped me? In this very room here, we had a sensitization like we are having now. And they said many things, and some of which I'll be telling you in the next 2-3 minutes that I have. And one of them has been emphasized, debt management. Do not go into your retirement with a debt. All of you here are approaching retirement. Why do I say so? From the day you come to Makerere, you are moving close to your retirement. Today, you are one day closer to retirement than you were yesterday. So as all the speakers have emphasized, now is the time to do the things you need to do for retirement. So I was so hit by that thing about going into retirement debt-free, because I'd just seen a colleague, at that time I didn't even think I'm near retirement, no, who went into retirement and was happy, took a lot of debt, and said, don't worry, when I get my money from MURBS, I'll pay. And he paid. It looked like a lot of money. But you people, believe you me, you heard GenAfrica telling us, many people have between 150 to 350, some are above. It's not a lot of money. Even if they give you 500 now, believe me, in 2 weeks, it can be gone. So consider paying half of that on a debt and then having to think what to do when you don't have a regular income. In my particular case, how did having an emergency fund help? I had one of the things that was talked about, an unexpected event. I was in a motor accident, knocked by my own car, believe it or not. How that happens is a long story for another day. But that was 1 year before my retirement, and I was down for 1 whole year without working. Fortunately, Makere gave me a salary. The greatest shock was when they carried me into hospital. I didn't know that Makere had canceled our insurance. And I said, what insurance do you have? I gave them my card. They said, oh, Makere canceled this. And that was on an Easter weekend. You know what happened? That Easter weekend is long, from Thursday to Monday. And I think that was on Saturday. And what the banks do, they also close. So you go to ATMs, most ATMs are empty anyway. So we tried to do a visa transaction. The hospital I was in was owned by Indians who had gone on an Easter break. We couldn't even use a visa. So before I could even use my emergency fund, I want to talk about 2 other things you should invest in now before you retire. 1, invest in your family. Some of us, we get somebody talked about how people are here. I'm a professor, I'm so busy. I don't have time for my family. You don't go to weddings, you don't go to funerals, you're too busy for everybody. Believe you me, when push comes to shove, the people who are there are your family. And my family was there for me to help me through that. The second investment is to invest. You spend more time here than you have spent in your village, believe me, by the time you've retired. So these people here are the most important people to you. Invest in them. And this, I was very, very fortunate to be taught this lesson by Professor Ndolerire. Some of you might know him. Professor Ndolerire is a very good friend of mine. We worked together for many years in Makerere. But as you know, Makerere, sometimes in this meeting, we were in faculty board and we disagreed. And I was saying, no, you are wrong, Professor. What? Those of you who know Professor Ndolerire know he's a very gentle man. And the Mutoro most at that. You know the Batoro, how gentle they are. Okay, it's a stereotype, but many of them are. And he just looked at me like this. And then he came afterwards and told me, Jane, you know, we only work here, you know. And this is not our father's home, you know. And what will happen is one day we are actually going to leave, and we will leave Makerere here. But what's important is the things we shall take away with us. So what we shall take away with us is the relationships we formed. Please, these are the people. These are the relationships. They might even bow to you because you are the head of department and so on, because they need you to sign, because you are the dean, because you are the principal, because you are in council. But when you leave, what's important? When I had that accident, I tell you, the next morning, the number of Makerere people who were there had to be chased away. They told them, are you people, there are too many people coming into this room, you know? I think if you are going to visit her, visit them on condition you visit the people in 2 other rooms who haven't got any visitors. So I think some of you who came to see me, you remember that. So they had to go visit other patients as a condition of coming to see me. But for me, that was so heartening. I didn't know I would walk again to see that I've come up the stairs. It's really by the grace of God, and we thank God for that. But I couldn't have done it without my family, without my friends, because I needed to have an urgent operation to put titanium plates on Monday, Easter Monday still, and somebody, a friend, we needed 19 million shillings. A friend gave us that money, which we couldn't have. Makerere University has a system. Now I understand. They pay you back the money you spend first. That was in April. I think I got that refund in October. So I would still have been on that operation table up to October waiting for that money if it wasn't that. So those are some of the things that perhaps help. So that helped me a lot to prepare for some of the things. But to come to the thing that I have been talking about, how then do I transition to a unit trust, and what should you do now? First of all, a unit trust was explained very clearly to us. One of the sad things is we think that a unit trust is a tool we should use in retirement. But actually, now is the time to start on a unit trust, because a unit trust does something interesting. It gives you compounding interest. So for instance, if you put in if you have 100 million now, at the end of this month, you will have about 1,100,000, 101 million shillings. And every single day, that interest is calculated on what you have earned. And what helped me was two things. One, being a MURBS ambassador. Please, the next time they advertise, apply. You really benefit a lot. The MURBS seminars, and there's a lady seated up the back there. Agnes, could you put up your hand? Agnes was on my case. Every day, when are you going to put in a unit trust? I said, what is that? I didn't even know what it was. Put in, I said, I don't have money. She says, you don't need much. You only need 100,000 to start. Jane, unit trust. Jane, unit trust. It really, really helped you. Thank you, MURBS. Thank you, Agnes. If you need more information about that. What's one of the good things about a unit trust? A unit trust, you put it in today, tomorrow it starts earning interest. Supposing you had, I'm not very good at building. And by the way, for people who have, maybe before I say that, the previous speakers mentioned something very important. Here again in MURBS, we were told during a sensitization seminar that if you have not been doing something successfully or unsuccessfully for the last 5 years, don't start it at retirement. Because as the previous speaker said, you have not paid the tuition. You are going to have to pay that tuition with your retirement money, because every business has risks, it has mistakes, many things. We've also been told that we go into businesses from a testimony, but those testimonies are like motivational speakers. I started this chicken business with one feather. They tell you, the advantages. They don't tell you their pains. They don't tell you their losses. Some of the most popular things people do, I know, keep chickens. If you go and buy chickens at, I don't know how much they sell them at, 2,500, by the time it grows, you'll be selling it at 15,000. Nobody tells you about staying up at night. Nobody tells you about the ones that die. Nobody tells you about the change in markets. I know another person who got 300 from MURBS. And when they told him, you know, you can plant watermelons somewhere in certain place, there's land, it's available at this much, you will plant. Each watermelon is this much. Person went, planted watermelons. When they were ready, there was no market, and they stole half the watermelons. The 300 million was gone. Now, coming back to unit trusts, that I'm not saying it's bad. They are successful farmers like our previous speaker, but you heard what he said. He has been doing this for 10 years, so he knows. He's not a telephone farmer. It sounds to me that he goes to his farm. He knows the workers. He knows the drought. He knows the markets. What about you? What do you know about farming? If you do, diversify in that direction. I recommend it. If you don't, perhaps look for something safe like a unit trust. The rentals. First of all, you saw a unit trust gets you between 10 to 11 point something percent interest. But you've seen the interest from rentals between 8 and 10. depending on location. Now, if you're starting your rentals after retirement, most likely you are not in Kororo. Most likely you are not even in Gayaza. Most likely you are where? I don't know, Matuga and so on. I'm not saying it's a bad area, but how much are you going to get? But believe me, building costs the same in Kampala as in Matuga, as in Tororo, where I come from. So you'll get your 100 million and build. Remember, you're not even an experienced builder. You've been teaching, research, publishing. So they are going to cheat you. You lose money. For 2 years, you're earning nothing. Whereas your 100 million in 2 years would have earned you at least 20-something million to start with. So for me, it is a tool. It is not an investment, but as they said, it's a tool to use while you think what to do with that money. What helped me, again, I told you about the accident that I had because I couldn't even come to MURBS. I couldn't climb the stairs to get my money or something. I just was lying there on my bed thinking, what am I going to do? I don't wish you to have an accident in order to think, but could you perhaps get an emergency fund so that in those first 6 months, you don't touch that money and you think and you be out there and see the options for yourself. I lived in Makere inside campus here for over 20 years. This place is very different from out there. It's important to be out there to understand how out there works. Time is little. If you want to know a lot more about the unit trust, that Agnes will tell you a lot of good things. MURB people will tell you a lot of good things. And the disadvantages to what then, but the one last thing I want to say about a unit trust. 2 months ago, I talked to a friend. Well, she does very well. She says, in my bank account, I keep about 16 million for emergencies. I said, what is 16 million doing in a bank account? A bank account chops your money every month for this bank cost, that bank cost, and they use their money for investment and they earn. I would suggest leave just a little money in your bank account to do the usual short emergency and put it somewhere, the unit trust, in a bond or whatever. And what is the advantage of a unit trust? You can redeem this money within 24 hours. You write a redemption, they'll give it to you at 0 cost. They're not going to charge you transfer fees, anything. It will be in your account and you can use it. What does this do for you when you have some money sitting there in a unit trust? It keeps your dignity. We have heard here about a dignified retirement. When you're retired, people are not going to be so willing to lend you money, you know? You might have an emergency that's a little bigger than what you normally do. When you run to so-and-so, they say, this one who has no salary, where will they pay from? And if you come from a culture like mine, my culture is not a face-saving culture. They'll be very direct. They'll tell you, I can't lend you. Where will you find money to pay me? But if you come from a face-saving culture like Uganda here, they might say, Bambi, but if you, and then imagine trying to borrow money and you don't get it and you still haven't solved your problem and you've lost your dignity. So borrow from yourself. I'm not saying exhaust your fund, borrow it, be disciplined enough to return it. Why will you be able to borrow it? Because all Ugandans, I don't know which Ugandan is not waiting for some kamane. Waiting for some kamane, but it has delayed. Has that ever happened to you? It's really not that you don't have money. You've done some consultancy, you've sold something, but they told you they are paying in 3 weeks. But children are going back. Some of you have candidates. They are going back this Sunday, and you don't have that money. And everybody you are borrowing from is also saying they have that. Redeem it from your fund. When your money comes, replace it. Unit trust has many advantages. We can talk privately later on. But let me talk about an annuity. Our speaker said that an annuity is true. These funds are managed for you. MURBS has signed an MOU with ICA Insurance. And so you put in some money and then they give you some money every month. It's not true that if you die, you lose it. No, you get a guarantee period. That guarantee period varies. It can, in my case, I have a guarantee period of 10 years. So for 10 years, if I die, I really want to live, so I hope I don't die before 10 years. If I die before those 10 years, the balance that would have paid to me for 10 years will be given to the beneficiary I choose. But if I live to be 90, I really hope I do, then they pay for life, for life. But do you know that if I live to 90, my money that I have put in will have been, there's a way they calculate it, you'll have used up your money in those 10 years. But should you live longer, even another 20 years, they will still pay. You don't have to pay anything extra. And the fact that it doesn't bring back, interest, you people, when you buy tomatoes, when you pay yaka, when you pay water, when you pay bill, do they give you back that money? No. So in a way, they are providing you in a secure way with money to spend. But what if you want to, and what if you don't want to spend that money? Sometimes my annuity comes and I don't need it because I have got income from another source. Instead of saying, oh, I have an extra bit of money here, you could put it back in a unit trust. You could put it back in a bond. You could put it in anything that you are investing in, whatever tool you are diversifying in, so that that money works for you. But for me, one of the most important things I can say about an annuity is the health issue. You people, however much money you have, there is no guarantee. That time when I got that accident, I had enough money on my account to pay. My family had enough money to pay, but they couldn't reach that money then. There will be days, you have heard of people who have died of pneumonia. Pneumonia presents like malaria. So if you imagine you are retired and you didn't invest in social capital, sometimes you've invested, but people are very busy. You know, they may not have been checking on you because they are busy marking exams, clocking in, clocking out on biometrics, all those things. So you are there just feeling sort of sorry for yourself and you get sick, but you have money, all right. But you need to go to the bank or something, or you need to wait until Monday. You say, I think it's just malaria. You treat malaria because you don't have the money. By the time you go to hospital, it's too late. How many people have died of pneumonia? Have you heard? I'm sure we've all heard. And I'm just giving an example. So an annuity comes with a medical insurance guaranteed for 2 years. So you never have to worry about it. Anytime you feel anything, you can even go to hospital and they run 5 tests and say there was nothing. You go home. I think there's something worrying you. But can you do that if you are not sure and you're going to spend your valuable money of retirement? An annuity is good. It gives you that peace of mind. Sometimes what makes us sick is stress. You are worried. You're worried about things. But when you know, if I'm sick, I'm going to go get this money. If I have an immediate emergency, I can redeem some of my money from the unit trust. And the unit trust compounds. When you go for a unit trust, they'll show you, they'll model a calculation. From what I have seen, in 5 years, you will have got 50% more than you put in. So that if, depending, more give or take, if you put in, say, 100 million in 5 years, and you haven't taken out anything, you'll probably have 150 million. In 10 years, you'll have 200 million. Won't that help take care of the inflation we're talking about? So I'm not saying take this. This is what has worked for me. It may not work for you in the same way. But if there's anything in this that works for you, please give yourself peace of mind. I would really like to thank again MURBS. I did not want to take the annuity because at that time, I think my mind was in what they were talking about, investing too aggressively. I was saying, this money that is not going to bring me a return, After 10 years, they've taken my money and done nothing. I'd like to really talk about two ladies. I don't know if they are here, Juliet Nabukera and Susan from MURBS. I think all of you know these ladies. They really talked to me for a long time. The thing is, they weren't trying to persuade me or force me. They just talked and talked and talked. And I'm really very thankful. If they're not here, please tell them I'm really thankful for what they did. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Jane Francis Alawo. Let's give her another round of applause. Wow, I hope we've had quite an informative session because that was right from experience. You've heard about the annuity, how it worked for Dr. Jane Francis, who happens to be a MURBS ambassador, once an ambassador or is an ambassador. So we hope this was quite an informative session from her. So we're going to kick off the Q&A session, and that will be right from the first speaker up to the last speakers. So if you have any questions, you can put up your hand and then we shall get the microphone to you.
Since I'm an ambassador, let me first take this microphone and I'll speak later. But how do I reach you?
Thank you. I'm just seeking clarification from the presenter on bonds. Is it 15% per annum or what is it? And then for treasury bills, is it 14% in 90 days or is it annual?
Thank you so much. Let me proceed from there. My name is Justine Namudu, an ambassador, of course. My question is related to that. However, my concern was for the treasury bonds. I normally hear that the interest is taxed. I don't know where that is true. If it is taxed, what is the rate of tax? For example, if I invest my 100 millions and it is yielding, let's say 20%, as you're going to explain, how much is the tax on that interest? Thank you.
Okay, any other questions, please? I have one that is online for our speaker, George. I have heard of a unit trust. Could you throw more light on it? And that's from Esther Nakamate, who is online. Okay, I think that's it for now. So, George, I give you the floor to answer the 3 questions.
Thank you. Is it okay if I take them from here?
Yes, please. It's very okay.
Okay. Thanks for the questions. At least it shows that there's some value from the discussion that we had. I'll get right into it. The clarification on bonds. What is the rate? I deliberately avoided to get into the nitty-gritty, hoping that all of us get very interested to start doing the research. There are so many bonds. There are so many bonds that have been issued and are going to be issued. Right now, there's over 20 different types of bonds that you can buy into. What a bond does is that it gives you a certain promise for certain dates. So, for example, bond A, which is 10 years. The government promises that it will borrow your money for 10 years and it will pay you 15% per annum or per year. Now that 15% is broken into two. So every 6 months, you will receive a portion of that 15%. Now, as I said, there are so many bonds that a bond of 2 years, because the government is borrowing for a short time, will likely get you about 14%. A bond of 20 years, and some bonds are fairly good, will get you up to, say, 17.5%. But again, I emphasize, these are planning tools that if you have a plan, they will plug into that plan. If you have no plan, don't work backwards to say, I will put my money where I hear the highest return coming from. That's also a bit of a fallacy. But that's what I can say on the bonds. The treasury bills, as I said, it's up to 1 year, but it is still government borrowing from you up to 1 year. The 14% is gross of tax. Gross of tax. So on treasury bills, you will be charged, and it answers another question, 20% of the interest, not of the investment, of the interest on treasury bills. On treasury bonds, some you will pay 20% on the interest, but others you will pay 10. Now, why is there that difference? Is that government at some point was trying to put some incentive, as opposed to lending them for 1 year or 2 years or 5 years. You could say, I will lend you for longer. Of course, it allows room, collect taxes and all these other plans, oil and what, to come on board so that they can pay you. But the longer, the bonds that mature after 2029, that's 2029, 2030, 31, 40, all those, you pay withholding tax, or withholding tax is held from you of 10%. Those that mature before, 20%. So there's that differential. And as someone who is planning, of course, you would take it into consideration, because you benefit more from a net basis. If you lend government longer term, you get net, you get a higher interest. Unit trusts, yes. Unit trusts, our speaker gave also very good testimony. This is Esther's question. Again, I avoided the specifics of the options because the message I had today was to plan for their retirement. Then these tools come in to plug. The issue with not planning is that almost automatically you start to look for the highest returning option. Now, the highest returning option, it now leads you down a very slippery slope, because is that appropriate for you? Because the highest returning option is not appropriate for everyone, because not everyone has the same plan. However, since the question has been asked and it is very specific, I will also answer it in a very specific way. Unit trusts are an investment option, or as we said, a planning tool where you can invest your money. They are very liquid, meaning they are very easily convertible from cash to asset or asset to cash. There are many providers now. They are a very good tool to save, because you can, as our speaker said, you can get back your money very quickly within 24 hours. So in my discussion, I would say that they would serve a very good function for an emergency fund. They would meet that need because they yield, they are fairly safe, because what happens is the unit trust also goes and invests in government bonds and treasury bills. So they are safe. They are easily convertible. You can get back your money very, very quickly. and the return is also decent. So where do they fall on the spectrum of your plan? Are they an emergency fund for medical, for personal reasons, or do they fulfill the need for long-term growth investments? So they have to fit somewhere on your spectrum of your plan. But the characteristics, they are very good. They are easy to get into, easy to get out, readily available and accessible. So I would say they have become very popular, and I hope that many of us get more educated so that we can participate in these investments. Liquidity and safety, I think they would be the first two characteristics of a unit trust. Easily accessible and also fairly safe. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much, George. We have some questions for some of our participants online. Yes, Frida Katushemererwe, you can put through your question, please. Frida, you have been unmuted. Please put through the question. Okay. And Dan Kaye. Eva Mirembe. I think these took a while before we got to their question, but there's a question online from Innocent Twebaze. Are there more risky or unstable fund managers to avoid when looking at unit trusts? Some advice, please. And then if we have any other question from our audience here, you can raise up your hand and then the mic will be brought to you.
I wanted to know more about the annuity. It's not coming out clearly. I didn't know that at the end of it all, you don't get anything. I thought it was like after a certain period, your lump sum is still your money. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And there's another question. I have not had anything on capital markets. I have not had anything on capital markets. Is Uganda's boss not yet encouraging? Okay, I think George, those are for you.
Again, thank you for the very active participation. And in the interest of time, I will give more concise answers. Innocent, risky fund managers to avoid, I think the comfort I can give is that unit trusts are a fairly regulated product or solution. And by regulated, I mean there is oversight from the Capital Markets Authority. All managers of unit trusts have to be licensed. There's a lot of inspection. Where the unit trust fund managers invest is also heavily dictated by the Capital Markets Authority. So from a regulatory perspective, you can take some comfort that there's an entity looking out for the savers from that perspective. Of course, I cannot address the specific risks that an individual fund manager carries, but what I can give is the comfort that from a regulatory perspective, the industry is fairly well regulated. Why? Because the participants are individuals who do not have the same muscle in terms of research, in terms of resources to fend for themselves. That's why the law then comes into fend for them in terms of safety. So I can say that CMA or Capital Markets Authority really looks out for investors, and if there's any risk, it will be capped at that point. Having said that, I do not give any guarantee that a fund manager will not collapse, but you would, the same way banks are to say, tell me about a safe bank or not, you have then to trust that Bank of Uganda is doing a good job, that if your bank is going to collapse, you're protected. Otherwise, at an individual provider level, it's very difficult without looking into the internal operations of all fund managers to give that sort of assurance. More information on the annuity, and I like the testimony that came through from the annuity from our former ambassador, actually current ambassador, because you're still testifying at the beauty of belonging to MURBS. So you can't say that you're now a former ambassador. I think you're still very much an ambassador. My understanding of an annuity is that it is an insurance product which guarantees certain payouts to the subscriber for a specific amount of time. So the annuity she talked about, luckily enough, gives a guarantee of 10 years. So even if you met your demise 2 years in, your beneficiary, at least what I understood, will receive the assured sum. Your beneficiary will receive the assured sum. As with every insurance product, it is looking more at risk assurance than guaranteeing return. So it is addressing the risk component of, I have lived up to 80 years or up to 90 years, you will get something. If you die before, the annuity she subscribes to guarantees some sort of sum. Now, other annuities will be dictated by the terms and conditions of the insurance company. So be very keen when you're subscribing so that you get the right information. Because in insurance, when the risk is covered, then you have foregone the premium. In just generally in insurance business, if you insure your car against accidents, that risk has been insured. Now, whether you get an accident or not, you cannot claim back the premium because you didn't get an accident. However, some insurance companies will say if you don't get accidents for 4 years, we'll give you something back or whatever. Terms and conditions really apply. But it is a risk-based assurance product as opposed to an investment product. So the question on capital markets is Uganda's stock exchange, not yet. So everything we have been discussing, okay, most of the things we've been discussing are really capital markets based discussions. A capital market, without being very technical, is like any other market, demand and supply of capital. And everything we've been talking about here is really capital that is moving from an investor to someone in need, or from someone in need to an investor. But under the cover of a regulated capital market, that's where Capital Markets Authority comes in. It regulates unit trusts, it regulates some annuities, it regulates bonds, treasury bills. So all those are capital markets discussions. But if I'm to err on the side of caution, I would imagine this person was asking about the stock exchange. Now, the stock exchange is also active, it is vibrant. I did not discuss it because it is uncertain, and what we are trying to introduce is certainty in retirement. However, if at an earlier stage as you plan for retirement, it can also serve as a tool, as a planning tool to say, okay, I have invested in all these things that you've talked about. Can I now buy some shares in Umeme, in Stanbic, in MTN, in all these? Yes, you can through the stock exchange. What need does that address, that I have bought MTN shares as long as, or as well as bonds? It addresses the growth component that MTN, if you look at the demographic results, the census results, we have almost 70% of the country has not yet used a mobile phone. They are still below 15 years old. That's a market for MTN because they are signing up, even if it's 50% of new users every year. That's maybe 1 million new users who are going to use mobile money, data, voice, all that. That's the sort of analysis you do when you're going to buy, for example, an MTN share. And you say, okay, over the next 20 years, I'm comfortable owning these shares because, yes, from a cash flow perspective, I've addressed that need through a unit trust or a bond. Now, from a wealth creation perspective, I have shares. From a personal interest perspective, I have rentals. You've addressed your plan with different planning tools. So the stock market is very active. It has some very good results here in Kenya, in Rwanda. If you interest yourself more at the planning process, you might even opt to buy shares in New York, or because all this is available. You can be in Uganda and say, I would like to own some shares of Facebook or some shares of TikTok, or I see so many people on Twitter, I would like to buy some shares of Twitter. All that is available, but that's not the discussion we are having. Now we are drawing a plan. Now, how to plug that plan with these different tools or options then becomes the next discussion. I hope I've captured what that question needed. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. Of course, we are having more questions, and however, I've been advised to close. Could I check the final questions? Okay. Yes, please.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you.
Yes, my name is Agnes. I just wanted to add on something from what the gentleman has said about the unit trust fund. And first of all, thank you, Dr. Jenna Law, for embracing and enjoying the benefits of the unit trust. My name is Agnes Alowo, and I work for Old Mutual. First of all, unit trust, we have, he talked about CMA, that's Capital Markets Authority. Those are one of our regulators. We are also regulated by UBRA. And then the fund passes through Standard Chartered Bank. So when you're doing investments, you don't give us cash, you go through the bank. And Old Mutual is the fund manager. So the only difference between the unit trust and a bond, for example, unit trusts are not taxed. We believe that by the time someone comes to invest with Old Mutual, you've already paid the taxes. So we do not tax you twice. This is a product that is not taxed. And opening a unit trust fund, you only need a national ID, a bank statement, you fill a form, and you begin investment. The time is now to plan and invest in a unit trust. Let me just give you my contact details, just in case you need information. I'll share with your proposal. You read through to make a wise decision. That is 0774 for MTN, 0774 12 09 92. I repeat again, 0774 12 09 92. And then for the Airtel, is 0700 12 99 92. 0700 12 9992. Please feel free to call me. I'll give you all the details that you need to know about a unit trust and for you to be able to begin your investment. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Agnes. Thank you very much, Agnes Alowo. You heard for yourselves. That's the unit trust.
Thank you so much. I'm Winnie, an ambassador. My question is, for the fact when you're getting a bond below 5 years, it can't go beyond 15%. But according to explanation, you're saying that the tax is 20%. Kindly explain that dilemma.
Thank you, Winnie. And we have one final question online. What is the difference between a planning tool and an investment? Please shed more light. That's a question from Leah Sikoyo.
Okay, I'll take that first. The reason why I call it a planning tool, really, it's just English words that are put together. There's nothing peculiar about the planning tool. A planning tool is to emphasize that there has to be a plan. That's why I call it a plan. I could call it a bond, a treasury bill, whatever. But without a plan, then you really should not be looking at options if you don't know why you need those options, honestly. That is why when you get so much money at one go, the person you trust the most, you will go with what they are saying works. That is how we ended up with circles. Those of you who have been in this town a while, you remember the circles from 20 years ago where people would meet in the middle of town, and you find so many meetings, but that is the day they are collecting money. And it keeps on gravitating, but some of these things are pyramid schemes. So I avoided the options without the plan. The plan first, then the options, because you know why you need a bond of 20 years if you are planning retirement of 20 years. You know why you need a bond of 3 years if you have 3 years to receive your MURBS money. That bond now comes in to plug that gap. Basically, the plan is unique to you. You're the one who knows your problems, your aspirations, your goals. Even if we can speak generally, we ultimately expect that I will have my own plan, because some people want to move to the village when they retire, while some people want to move to an island. So those two cannot be reconciled. It really has to be a plan. But yet a bond can address the needs of the person going to the village, and another bond can address the needs of someone who is going to a cruise ship or whatever. The clarity on the bonds and the tax. The tax is withholding tax on the interest of the bond, the interest earned on the bond. So let us use the example of a 5-year bond. If you invest 1 million shillings in a bond that is earning 10% interest in coupon, that is 100,000 shillings you're getting every year. Before that 100,000 shilling comes to you, there's a tax on it of 20%. So you will get 80,000 shillings for your investment of 1 million every year. Now, another bond which is paying less tax, the same scenario, you invest 1 million, you get 100,000 shillings, and this is just a scenario. Some bonds pay less tax of 10%, so 10,000 shillings will be withheld and you will get interest of 90,000 shillings. That is the differential in the taxing regime of the bonds. The interest rates vary between 14 and at the longest end, 18.5% in terms of what you call a coupon, the promised commitment to pay you interest by the government. So that is the range of the bonds. The tax is only on the interest, only on the interest. They don't tax your principal. It is only on the interest. It can be 10% or 20% depending on the bonds. But as I said, have this as a rule of thumb. The bonds after 2029, or that mature after 2029, pay less tax than the bonds that mature before 2029. It's a law. That law can change. It can be amended next year, and those facts can change. But for now, have it in mind that some bonds pay more tax than others, 10% versus 20%, but only on the interest, not on the principal. I hope that that has come out clear.
Okay, thank you very much, George. I think we can give a round of applause to our dear speakers for today. We've had quite an informative session. We've learned about unit trust. We've learned about bonds. We've learned that we should not eat the capital. And so we're going to close off this session with some very few closing remarks from our trustee, Mr. Joseph Ikarokok, who will close off the session. And then we shall have one photo together. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Rebecca. By the name's Joseph Ikarokok. I want to take this opportunity, first of all, to salute all of you. Good evening, everybody. And on the same note, I want to thank the members, both physical and online, for your patience and good attendance and being very attentive to our presenter, who is George Mulindwa. And I hope this has been taken on a serious note, because one thing I want to encourage you is that planning is not something new in our lives. It is something that has been there. But of course, when it comes to retirement, sometimes we get disorganized with our plans. So after getting a presentation from George Mulindwa, who is giving us more insights, because in life, there are challenges. So on that note, begin practicing your planning on a retirement. That is before and after. And on the same note, I want to thank our retirees for giving us words of encouragement. That has been so good. I pray next time when we invite you, please come and give us more information. So I know, as I was given this time to give closing remarks, I want to encourage all the members that MURBS is a very stable scheme. Everything is moving on well, and be assured of a dignified retirement. Thank you so much. I wish you the best.
Yes, I won't say anything further from that. And so we can have a group photo right outside. Yes, thank you.